We're live.
Okay. Hello and welcome. My name is Zinat Islam and I'm the Relations Manager Academia Network at Yunus Center. We have yet again another exciting session co-hosted by our colleagues from Catholic University of Zimbabwe and Kampala International University in Uganda. 4 other YSPCs are doing live and Zoom sessions: Tangaza University College, God School in Central African Republic, University of Abomey Calavi in Benin, and Makerere Business School. The topic for today's conversation is a very important one as it focuses on climate change, a ticking time bomb for all of humanity. Let us hear what our panelists talk about the ideas and solutions. And for that, I welcome our moderator, Professor Chukwemeka Diji, who's the Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovations Consultancy, Kampala International University, to take the floor and introduce the panelists. Requesting everyone to kindly maintain time. A bell will ring at 3 minutes and a 5-minute mark for each speaker. So please ensure your conversation is done in time. So with that, we start our conversation today on the topic of cross-country collaboration for fighting climate change. And I give the floor to Professor Diji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zinat. Thank you, panelists, for coming. I also want to thank Lamia, the Managing Director for YC, for joining us. Thank you so much for having time to join us. I also want to thank our partners from Catholic University of Zimbabwe. I wish they could turn on their video so we could see them and greet them. Thank you all for being part of this session. Climate change is one of the biggest issues of our century. And just like the theme of our Social Business Day, it is one of those things that will probably kill our economy, kill our countries, and may destroy our civilization. So how do we, from different parts of the country, different continents, collaborate to fight this particular challenge, which is the biggest challenge of the 20th century, 21st century? I have a very wide range of panelists spread across all the continents so that they can give us their different perspectives. I also want to thank our students joining us, Kampala International University, from Abonime, MOOCs, and all others who are joining us off this camera. First person I want to introduce is someone who has championed climate change in Africa, and she has been particularly a mentor to me in the last 5-6 years that I've known her, and she has quite a wide range of experience. I want to first introduce Madam Edith Adera. She's the Regional Principal Officer and African Adaptation Acceleration Program Coordinator for the African Development Bank based in Kenya. She has had over 28 years of experience in development, research, and advanced program in agriculture, climate change, and ICT. She's currently working with the African Development Bank, as I mentioned earlier. Before then, she has served for several years with the Canadian Institute for Development Research Center, IDRC, for about 22 years. Working on issues of climate change, leadership, and like I mentioned at the beginning of this particular discussion, she was one of those who offered me a wonderful opportunity in 2017 to be trained as an African climate research fellow. For this, I'm always very grateful to her. So welcome, Ma, on board, and we're very happy to hear your perspective on cross-country collaboration in climate change. The second speaker, who I'm also going to introduce, for certain obvious reasons, Professor Amos Kabova, who is currently a professor of civil and environmental engineering and the director for international relations at the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Ghana. He's also my student and my friend. And for so many years, we worked together on the issue of climate change, especially within the sub-Saharan, between the West African region. He has served at different times as head of Department of Civil Engineering. He has also served as coordinator of the Earth Observation Research and Innovation Center at his university. He's also been working as a member of the Scientific Steering Committee for the Global Climate Observing Systems of the World Meteorological Organization. He comes with a lot of experience on issues of climate change across the West African and African region. Professor Amos, you are welcome again to this panel. I want to hear from you. Another person who has been very passionate and has always wanted to talk to us on this subject is our friend Mahmoud Hussein. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, sir. Yeah, he's the CEO of Grammar Digital Health. He's also an advisor to the chairperson of the Grammar Telecom Trust. He has worked in various areas of technology, business, policies, regulations, strategy, and management for over 30 years in different national and multinational companies. And I believe in this conversation, he will be able to bring his own perspective as a practitioner who has been someone at the forefront of understanding the impact of climate change, and he will give us his perspective about how we can do cross-cultural and cross-country collaboration. Another person, because for this century, and we know that the youths are the future, they are our tomorrow, and we're going to hear from one of them. Very glad to have Natalia Magundo. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. She's joining us from Zimbabwe, and she's a youth fellow in the research in finance area. She's been very active in the United Nations Climate Change High-Level Champion Team, and she's currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Economics from the University of Zimbabwe as the South African Climate Finance Partnership Master's Scholar. We want to hear her perspective as a young person who has also been involved in looking at climate change finance and how we can cross-collaborate. We're expecting 2 other members of this panel, and we hope they will join us soon. We're expecting Dr. Clive Ziyimba, who is also from the Catholic University of Zimbabwe, and Dr. David Awolala, who is also a lecturer in Nigeria in the area of agriculture. We believe both of them will bring their experience to bear. And as we continue, whenever they join us, we'll pause. We'll also pause anytime Professor Eunice joins us to give us a message in this session. So once again, I want to thank all of you for coming. And without wasting much time, okay, Professor Eunice is here.
Hello.
We don't know if you have anything to tell us, or we'll just go ahead.
Oh, just go ahead. It's a big task. It's a climate change. It's a fantastic work. And this is the first zero for the 3-0 world, zero net carbon emission. So it's a lot of things to talk about. And situation has got worse since COP26 because of the COVID-19, and then particularly because of the Ukrainian war, because of the shortage of oil. Now, many countries, big countries, rich countries moving into fossil fuel they abandoned before, now are going back to their own fossil fuel, which they promised to reduce. Now they're increasing it. That's a reverse process that we are in. So this is the context in which we'll be discussing here. And thank you very much. Please go right ahead. Good luck.
Thank you so much. And happy birthday once again from all of us.
Thank you. So nice of you. Thank you. Wonderful to see you all.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we'll start with our first speaker. I want to call on Madam Edith. She works in the African Development Bank, and I'm sure she has a very big overview. So Maya, you're welcome on board. You give us a perspective on this subject.
Thank you very much, Professor Chooks. I'm really, really pleased to join the session. Just like to know, how much time did you say I have? 5 minutes in my first intervention?
Yes, 5 minutes.
Okay, it's a big topic, so I hope I'll keep to my 5 minutes. But thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to join. I am really pleased to join this session, and I think it's coming at a very critical point in time, just like Professor Yunus has mentioned. And it's we know the impacts of climate change do not stop at the borders. They do not respect borders, and therefore cross-country collaboration is very critical. We've seen, I believe a number of you have managed to look at the reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They've released 3 reports of the current assessment that they're doing, which looks at the science of climate change. It looks at adaptation and mitigation. And I think the message is very clear that already we've locked ourselves in the carbon emission for the next 20 years. Even if we had 0 carbon today, we will have impact for the next 20 years. So what does that mean when we have reversal of the commitments that were made by European countries, as Professor Yunus has said, it means there's going to be very big impact. And what we are seeing is that the impact is actually happening across the continent, especially Africa is the most impacted, as we all know. And they've called for speed and scale in adaptation interventions, as well as in reducing carbon emissions. And here we are having countries reversing. So what does that mean in terms of cross-country collaboration? Climate change, you cannot tackle it alone. We must work together. So I'd like to just point out three things, three messages that I'd like to leave with you that I think are important building blocks if we are to address the climate change collectively. And I'd like to start with, let me start with the foundational piece, which I think is very critical, is to do with a governance framework that we need to have a climate resilient development if we were to move towards a path zero emissions by 2050. When I talk about the governance framework, whether you're looking at it at country level or looking at it at a regional level or global level, we need to act together. So we need cross-sectorial and transboundary solutions that cross boundaries. So which means we have to collaborate. We know we have water boundaries or water bodies, for example, that cross borders. We need long-term planning. So NDC long-term strategies for countries need to be in place. Only 2 or 3 countries in Africa have long-term strategies. So how do we get to net zero when we actually don't even have the roadmap to get us there? We also need a whole of government approach. So collaboration is very important in terms of governance. And if we do so within the context of our regional economic communities, then you're able to actually have policies in place that you can implement across countries. The second aspect that I want to touch on is the means of implementation. We cannot take climate action without finance. So far, if I take Africa as an example, we only receive 3% of global climate financing. Adaptation used to receive 10%. The latest statistics shows that it's gone down to 7.2% that comes for adaptation globally, and Africa gets the least. Capacity building is important, and technology. And I'd like to conclude with what to me is a foundational piece. If you take most of the economies, they rely on agriculture. Therefore, climate information services, smart technologies are very, very important for tailor-made solutions. And what we find that even when you do the best that you can in terms of climate solutions, you always have a residual risk. So issues of insurance comes in, whether you're calling it crop insurance, but we need innovative index-based insurance to deal with those risks. And then finally, it's very important for us to look at gender issues, to look at integration of climate solutions into social programs, as well as ensuring that we have livelihood diversification. But we need to do this in a very systemic way and collaborate across borders. So thank you very much for this opportunity to just highlight some of these important points.
Thank you so much, madam. I'm very grateful for your contributions. Once we have some more time, we'll ask you to give us some more elaboration. And so I also want to go to the next person to give us his own, I want to call on a fellow engineer, Mahmoud Hussein, to give us his own perspective. We've seen from the policy angle. We want to hear from you from the practice angle. You have the floor, sir.
Hi, Professor DG and other distinguished panelists. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of the Social Business Day for inviting me to this plenary session on this important subject. My name is Mahmoud Hussein. I'm the CEO of Grameen Digital Healthcare Solution, and it is a social business initiative to provide on-demand health services through digital platforms. Fighting climate change and cross-country collaboration for that is a vast area. Providing healthcare solution online to whatever extent possible can help fighting climate change. I would like to share with you 3 things very briefly from my perspective, or like working for this initiative of digital healthcare. Number 1, what we are doing at Grameen Digital Health. Number 2, how digital health can help in climate change issues. And last but not the least, how easily this model can be replicated in different parts of the world. We at Grameen Healthcare Solution, we provide 24/7 online doctor consultation over audio, video, and live chat. This is our core service. However, our customers can use app or website to access not only the doctors consultation, expert doctors, but also other services such as diagnostic service at home, home delivery of medicines, ambulance services, etc. We provide other services through our partners. Digital or online healthcare solution removes the need for travel, because you don't need to go to the doctor's place by car or any other means, which can contribute to the climate situation. Therefore, this digital healthcare solution, this can significantly reduce the medical industry's carbon footprint. Moreover, lesser office area for doctors' consultation also contributes for a better environment. The online healthcare solution we are providing can easily be replicated anywhere in the world. The app we are using can be used in any service providers. They can use it, the service providers, across the globe with minor tweaking. Hence, the countries can collaborate with each other very easily. Even a patient in Nigeria or Uganda can access to a consultant physician living in Bangladesh, or an expert Nigerian doctor living in USA or UK. This can be a great equalizer. I think I would stop here and would be happy to answer any question on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for keeping to time and for giving us your insight and your perspective. I think Dr. Cliff Ziambe, he just joined us. Dr. Cliff Ziambe is of the Catholic University of Zimbabwe. We want to welcome you to this session, and we hope you'll be able to give us your perception as soon as other speakers have had their turn. I'll quickly want to turn to Professor Amos Kaboba. I introduced him as a civil engineer who has been working in Earth observation at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. I think that's the only university of energy I know of in Africa. And he has done quite a lot of work, especially with climate change and using Earth observation to advise governments. So Professor Amos, I don't know if you're online, you can quickly give us your perspective about cross collaboration across countries to fight climate change. Professor Amos, you have the floor. We want to see your face and also want to hear from you. Professor Amos? Okay, while we wait for him, and probably maybe he's off, we want to listen to a young person who is on board here, Natalia. She has a presentation to give us. I don't know if your presentation is ready, so you can talk to us about climate finance. If you recall, in the opening remark from our sister and our patron from African Development Bank, she mentioned finance as one of the key areas to fight and to collaborate in climate change. So Natalia, you can go ahead while we wait for Professor Amos.
Thank you so much for having me.
Are you ready? Okay.
So, yes, I'll be discussing the critical role that finance has to play in the transition to a resilient net zero world. I'll particularly focus on the challenges that emerging markets and developing economies, or EMDEs, face in accessing said funding, because as Ms. Edith mentioned, As Ms. Edith mentioned, the capital is neither flowing at the pace and scale required, nor where it's needed most. Next slide, please. So I'll begin by giving you a lay of the land that EMDEs like Zimbabwe and Uganda find ourselves in, and the challenges we face in financing climate action. And then I'll go on to outline the specific dynamics which drive and constrain climate finance investments. And given that we have this context, I'll outline how we can start to align where an effective global response could focus and areas to focus on to mobilize green finance. So let's begin by outlining the challenges we face. There's about 143 emerging markets and developing economies with a combined population of 6.5 billion people. And despite our diversity, there are things which are common to all of us. First, we're highly vulnerable to physical climate change because 91% of deaths relating to extreme weather occur in our countries, and the vast majority of us have contributed relatively little to climate change. This is especially true for smaller countries like Zimbabwe and Uganda, where the impacts of one event often hit a significant proportion of the population and economy at the same time, making the events more disruptive and harder to respond to. The second challenge is that many of our government budgets are insufficient to address the scale of our mitigation and adaptation needs, and without the provision of urgent and adequate finance, technology, and technical assistance that Ms. Edith mentioned, it'll be hard for us to achieve the global goals. The third is that EMDEs are set to experience rapid economic growth over the coming decades, and so we're in a critical moment to avoid locking in high emissions assets and building long-term climate resilience to climate change. Next slide, please. So what investments do we need? While there's some level of consensus about the scale of investment needed to mitigate, however, adaptation finance needs are not well understood. And this is the type of financing that is extremely relevant for most African countries. And particular to adaptation, there are also feedback loops from the investment or lack thereof in climate solutions. The first is that of uncovered physical climate risk. Specifically, investment in resilience and adaptation reduces our exposure to climate risk, and that makes a country more attractive for investment. However, the lack of investment in resilience and adaptation basically compounds the problem. So it becomes a self-reinforcing cycle whereby there's underinvestment in climate risk management, making these impacts more expensive and thereby raising barriers to accessing even more finance needed to address the impacts. The second is the high levels of debt, which make it harder for countries to borrow in order to invest in resilience and adaptation. And even though these investments would reduce the risk and cost of future impacts. So you have this cycle where high debt is a barrier to current investments, which then increases the debt in the future. So third, we see that investment in resilience and adaptation makes a country's economy more attractive to inward investment. And if a country can capture the opportunity of job creation, for example, which is very relevant to young people, it can lead to GDP growth. Now, as I mentioned, EMDEs aren't homogeneous, nor are challenges we face. However, understanding how different types of countries interact with these system dynamics offers a sharper picture of the challenge and how interventions must be calibrated to offer to these differing needs. Next slide, please. So I think I'll just, I've given some examples of how a global response could be affected. However, in conclusion, I hope my presentation will generate a discussion on the core drivers of climate finance for EMDEs so that we can synthesize solutions for the challenges we commonly face. As we address this existential crisis, we need to ensure that we're collaborating to address the underlying drivers of underinvestment, use country groupings to scale up, and develop a coordinated action plan to develop a pipeline of investment-ready projects for our countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for that. It's a good piece. Like I mentioned at the beginning, Natalia is a student, a master's student who is looking at climate finance. So please continue to look at those things, particularly your action step 5 about pipeline investments. Thank you so much. Yeah, before we called on you, we had Professor Amos is back with us now. So Professor Amos, we want to hear from you. You know, you've been in climate observation. You've been doing a lot of work on the satellite and on the moon. How do we do cross-country collaboration to fight this evil? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much also for your invitation. And as my mentor too, I'm also happy that I'm part of this platform. And you know, we always have a lot of discussions. How can we come to this zero of everything? And how can we improve, let me call it, the livelihood? Because if you look at all these discussions, what is pointing out clearly is that if you look at Asia, even though climate will affect them, but their resilience has been improved because their income levels, their income levels and all those things, one way or the other, has improved. But when we come to Africa, that is where we have the problem. Our income levels are getting worse. There are no jobs. People are hungry. People need to eat. Then when you have droughts, you have flooding, then it becomes a whole lot of issue. But there is also an emerging opportunity, which I think some of my panelists have addressed, which I also want to bring up. I think there has to be a conscious effort for the academia and the industry to start to sit together. We have to break that wall in Africa. I think that emphasis is key. And I'm happy my mentor is Professor Chuse has been working with Indo, because that is a driving force for us to create the needed innovations that we need to drive the solutions that can help the continent to move ahead. Let me give one small example of a case in Ghana. There's a young group of young people who came together with an idea of trying to help farmers to understand weather patterns. So they went through the university, had some education, and out of that, they understood that if you use some satellite technology, you are able to come out with some idea, you are able to forecast. Then they established a company after their studies. Now that company, which is called Farmerline in Ghana, is doing so well, and they employ a number of other people because they are helping the farmers to understand when to crop and when not to crop based on the erratic weather patterns. Why am I bringing this to the fore? I think there is a need for the industry to tell the academia their problems and for academia to design their research to follow what is happening. Because until we do that, we will not be able to move forward. Asia is where they are because they have been driven by research. Research is what is driving their economy. And it is important in Africa that for us to fight the climate change, our government must understand that research is what changes everything. Climate, we like, we don't like, will always be with us. In fact, based on even the IPCC report is showing that there are going to be worse conditions. We don't know. There are going to be other wars that will further escalate and bring more problems. But the fact of the matter is that where I want to emphasize is on that the academia must sit together with the industry. The other point I want to conclude on is that there are very brilliant young people in Africa, very talented young people. All they need is to have that entrepreneurial skill to unlock their potential. I think that is, and I think this is also the focus of this particular forum that we are having. How do we unlock the potential in our young people to come out with innovative solutions that can help us to adapt to climate change and to live with climate change, and at the same time creating jobs and ensuring that we have food on our table? I think once we are able to do this, we are making a way and we can be able to address the problems on climate change in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Amos, for that. You know, we have had time to talk about this several times, and that is one of the focus we have when we talk tomorrow about the 3-0 Club. It is one of those things that I hope and I'm looking forward to in Kampala International University with some of my collaborative friends in Nigeria and Ghana to start looking critically, how do we organize young people in Africa? To organize clubs, organize groups that can directly deal with climate change from a social business perspective. Thank you so much. Thank you, but also thank you for reminding me about the time we have left. I hope Dr. Cliff is still on board. Dr. Cliff, Ziambe, are you still on? Because you have the floor now before we throw it open for more comments and conclusions. Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Cliff is a human ecologist and he's in the School of Public Health at the Catholic University of Cape Town. Sorry, I made the mistake the last time. And his research focus has been on characterization of the role of climate change in influencing endocrine disruption and other health risks resulting from exposure to endocrine disrupting pesticides. So you are welcome, Dr. Cliff Ziambe. I hope I pronounced it correctly. I want to hear your perspective about this cross-cultural collaboration to fight climate change. You have the floor, Dr. Cliff.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to take part. Shall I share my slide from this end, or is going to be shared from your end?
So you can share your slides, sir.
All right. So my presentation is going to be on climate change and occupational health, and I'm interested in understanding just to see if there are any opportunities for cross-country collaboration. Can you see my slide now?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to put it in slideshow. All right. So I'm a lecturer in occupational and environmental health, and I've got a lot of interest in the issue of climate change and occupational health. And like you have rightly said, I've conducted research in the area of climate change and looking at how climate change is influencing farmers' exposure to endocrine disrupting pesticides. And I think it was my PhD that then put me in the area of in the interests with occupational health. So climate change is a serious concern globally because some people argue that it is actually the greatest health concern that mankind is currently facing, but of course others believe that it's infectious diseases, or others believe in their NCDs. But I think climate change, to me, is perhaps the greatest, I would say it's the greatest health threat because it interacts with the determinants of health. And I always like to describe climate change as a risk modifier, or better still, as a risk amplifier. It worsens the risks that are already there. Sometimes we call it also a risk perpetuating factor, in the sense that whatever effort we are making, climate change comes and it puts us back to zero. And then even though we try by all means to fight health challenges that we are facing, or it can be any challenge that are even economic challenges, you find that climate change will always be there to disrupt the progress that is being made. I think many of us have seen that some countries, as a result of the war that's happening, have now resorted back to using to firing their coal plants. So climate change for me, it's really, I worry about it because it's an occupational health threat. So for people who are going to work, every worker is at risk of facing serious health challenges as a result of climate change. And not necessarily that it's going to cause new challenges, but it's going to just worsen challenges that are there. But in other places, of course, new challenges will emerge. But I'm particularly interested in the relationship between climate change and outdoor workers, since I've worked with farmers. So when temperatures rise, people work outdoors at risk of experiencing quite a number of challenges, health challenges, including heat cramps, heat exhaustion. But what many people don't often understand is that they need to rehydrate themselves a lot, because with dehydration, organs can actually be affected, particularly their kidneys. And the ILO, International Labour Organization's constitution emphasizes that workers must be protected from sickness and diseases. Why? Because there are a lot of people globally who are at risk of suffering health challenges and getting some life-threatening conditions as a result of their work environment. And of course, economically, there are many costs that are associated with the occupational health challenges. And the ILO has got several conventions that have got to do with health and safety at work. But what I'm worried about, and what other people are worried about, is that at the moment we currently do not have any conventions or health standard or occupational health standards that have got to do with the protection of workers against climate change and climate change related health risks. And this is what creates opportunities for cross-country collaboration. I think the first opportunity that I see is that of addressing climate justice through shared learning and technology co-development. Rather than waiting for technology to be developed in the developed countries and then shared with us in the global south, I think there are opportunities that we can actually co-develop this technology, and then it can be brought to us, or then we can also bring it to the global north. And another opportunity for cross-country collaboration is that of bringing health in our policies, not only in national governments, but at the regional level, at the global level. Because if you may know, when we put these policies to, when we develop, when we come up with conventions and treaties at regional or global level, the advantage is that there will not be countries that are more competitive than the others, where you find that in some countries, companies actually move their operations to go to countries with less stringent regulations. So there's an opportunity that if all countries come together, put policies together, and address the issue of occupational and climate change and occupational health, and then translate this into national policies.
You have exceeded your time. I don't know if I can stop you.
You can stop me. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I already reached the conclusion.
So much.
Thank you very much.
We have your slide and we share them across and we can all look at it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, in beautiful things like this, time is always a big constraint. Zenat, I don't know how much time I have left.
We can wrap up in 5 minutes, but maybe you want to take some questions from the audience.
Okay. Do we have anyone from the audience who wants to ask a question? Or one of the panelists who wants to give us a wrap up from all the things we've discussed? I'm tempted to ask Madam Edith to give us a wrap up before we leave, because I know she deals with these issues on a daily basis.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this has been an interesting panel. And I think I'd just like to wrap up with 3 points. One is that the impacts of climate are real, they are raging. We need to take responsibility, and we also need to ask those who need to take responsibility to do so. That's my first point. I think globally as a community, we agreed that we are going towards the path to net zero. Where we find that that is being reversed, there's need for accountability to ensure we do so, particularly for developing countries and island states. If there's a reversal, they're the ones who will face the greatest impact. The IPCC report is very clear that we are reaching the limits of adaptation. So adaptation will no longer be possible if we cross certain limits. And we are the ones who will suffer as developing countries. My second point is to do with the youth, just to complement a point made by one of the panelists. The youth are not just our future, they take charge today. And we have seen at the bank, we did a youth challenge last year. We only could support 15. We had 2,000 plus applications. Professor Chukwemeka, you were part of the panel, very innovative ideas. And I think we can tap on the entrepreneurial skills of young people to actually come with local solutions to address this challenge. Finally, finance is absolutely critical. And I think we need to mobilize finances from all sources. At the African Development Bank, we've made our own commitments to double our financing, to reduce the financial costs. As Natalie has mentioned, the cost of access is extremely high. To help countries have direct access so that they can work with communities directly to bring a change. Finally, communities have a lot of innovations. We need to build from where communities are. We need to look at indigenous knowledge systems. We need to look at the knowledge systems that exist. How do we build from that and really bring in the innovations that we need, develop the innovations ourselves, working with research institutions and industry to actually bring change. Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting panel. We know the time has been short, but thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. I want to quickly turn to Catholic University of Zimbabwe. I don't know if you have any comments to make before we close this session. I can see our colleagues at Catholic University Zimbabwe. Any comments? Any comments from our colleagues there? Okay. Well, since she's the only young person in our midst, I don't know if Natalia has a last comment to give us, because we are told that you are the future. Our time has expired. So Natalia, you have anything to say as closing remark?
I think, I just echoed to say we're not the future, we're the present. We're taking action right now, and we need intergenerational cross-collaboration, cross-country support to ensure that we secure not only our futures, but for future generations as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Since I have 1 or 2 more minutes, I don't know if Dr. Cliff has one last comment to give us, because you are the only one who had to cut short your time. You have 1 or 2 things to say, Dr. Cliff, and then we'll close the session.
Well, I think the only thing that I really just want to say is health is an important aspect of climate change. And whenever we're talking about adaptation, mitigation, we should always remember health. And when we talk about health, we should also remember the health of our workforce, mainstream occupational health in climate change issues.
Thank you so much. I want to thank every member of panel who has been here. I also want to thank you for your participation, particularly our students from Kampala International University, University of Abonime, Makerere University Business School. Thank you so much for this time we have been together. Well, for things like this, usually you don't have all the time around. We are very grateful and we are thankful to you for your comments. Thank you so much. I will now hand over to, I don't know, Lamia, you have something to say?
No, I just want to say thank you. I think what we do right at the end is we do a group photo with all the panelists. So,
okay.
So if Professor Yunus is still there.
Can we all switch on our cameras so that we can have a group photograph? Yeah. Okay.
For giving us a chance to go globally. First of all, there is a statement which was mentioned by one of the panelists that in Africa, we are jobless. But the fact is, I want to rebut that statement. In Africa, we have got very many jobs. Because in all continents in the world, it is only Africa which has got very many problems.
Somebody says
Therefore,
something already. Hello? Hello? Maybe you wait for our panel session tomorrow and talk more. Sorry, Lamia,
yes,
for that. We'll go ahead. We'll talk more tomorrow when we have our own country session. So we want to go back to you, Lamia. Sorry for that interruption.
You're on mute, Ms. Lamia Murshid. You're on mute. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry, no, I didn't. I was just going to say thank you to everyone for this great session, and also to the audience from all our campuses who've joined in. Thank you. Please stay with us for the next sessions. We have many more interesting sessions coming up.
Okay.
So thank you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you to all our speakers and panelists and our moderator for conducting this session very beautifully. We thank our colleagues and the audience members who are live in the universities, the 6 universities which are co-organizing sessions over the 4 days. Thank you everyone for coming and listening. If you have any questions, comments, especially on climate change, they're a very important topic. Feel free to write to us. We all plan to work together on this. We have a project in Africa, and many universities are involved in that. We would love to work on a topic of climate change and how to solve problems arising from climate change. So thank you very much to all our panelists. We really appreciate your time and knowledge sharing. But before we end, I would like to play a video sent by our colleagues from the Catholic University of Zimbabwe. It has a message for Professor Mohammed Yunus, so we'd like to play the video. I request my tech colleague, to please play the video now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you a lot. Thank you, Catholic University of Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to our colleagues for arranging for that. And with that, we conclude this session. The upcoming session will be starting shortly. And I request my colleague, Mr. Robert Akoko, to take over.
Thank you so much.
This session
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Wonderful session. Great session. Thank you.
Thank you.